Welcome to the top-rated and award-nominated Grad School Femtoring Podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to learn about all things grad school, personal development, and sustainable productivity. This is Doctora Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your Femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to successfully navigate grad school and beyond. For over 13 years, I've been empowering first-gen students of color along their academic and professional journeys, and I'm really excited to support you too. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is your host, Doctora Yvette. Today, I have a juicy, highly requested episode on the topic of what I wish I knew about publishing a book with an academic press without an academic job. Yes, a lot of people have expressed interest, especially those of us that are first gen, in learning. Hold up, Doctora Yvette, how did you manage publishing a book? And how did you get to publish a book with UC Press? And can you show us how? Can you tell us what it was like? And what do you wish you knew when you were in the process of getting started? So I'm going to share all those things. And I'll mention, actually, before I start, I'll mention what motivated me to record this episode. So the first thing is that, like I mentioned, it's a highly requested topic in that I have had, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many people. It's been a lot of people reach out to me to quote unquote pick my brain about the book publishing process. And I'm the type of person that I reserve a certain amount of slots on my calendar for networking, for charlas, for talks, for meeting people. I don't expect folks to book a call only for consultations. I genuinely enjoy meeting new people. And if they have questions and, we've got that half hour to an hour together, I'm happy to offer any insights that I can to support them along the way. But at some point, I think maybe because you're using that phrase, please don't use the phrase, "Can I pick your brain?" It just is one of those phrases that to me doesn't come off well. It doesn't give me a good connotation. I know the folks that asked me had very good intentions, and I trust them, and I was happy to offer them time. So that's, in any case, I just don't use that phrase. Don't use the phrase. Don't go around with people saying, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" Because that feels very one-sided as opposed to it being a reciprocal relationship where you all are supporting each other. So that came up was just lots of people over and over and over again. "Hey, can you talk to me about how you published your book? I want to publish a book. Like, what advice do you have for me?" Next is that I published a post on LinkedIn that drew a lot of attention. This was earlier this week. It was a post of something along the lines of 4 things that I wish that I knew about publishing a book as a first-time author. And it had a lot of likes, but not even that. It had the most reshares that I've ever had. It had at least a dozen reshares by folks across all kinds of fields and industries. I mean, I'm talking about not just professors and grad students, but librarians, folks working for nonprofits, coaches, you name it. Lots of folks reposted it. So something about me sharing these things resonated with people. I think there's a lot of interest, and that reminds me of how the book publishing world is a very gatekeeping world. And it's no surprise that a lot of people want this information because they probably haven't had access to it. And you know me, accessibility is one of my core values. Accessibility in many ways. And in one of those ways, I mean that to refer to having access to information that has been traditionally and historically gatekept. And that has been excluded from some populations more than others. So yeah, it even came up as a question during my book launch. So once again, I just was like being slapped in the face with this topic of folks want to hear it, so let me give it to them. Okay? So let's dive in. So I'm going to share 7 things I wish I knew, because those are the things that I just off the top of my head, I was like, let me list them really, really quick and record this episode because it's last minute, it's the night before, and I want to get it out. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be scripted. I don't even have to have an outline. I'm just going to speak off the cuff and share with you the way that I would to anybody who comes and asks me for information behind closed door and has a one-on-one with me. No one should have to be devoid of access to information. So first thing, actually the first 4 things are related to that post that I shared on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to expand on those things that I said on LinkedIn. And then the last 3 are things that I didn't mention in that post that I thought about later. So the first one is you don't make money selling books. Contrary to popular belief, for the most part, if you're publishing with an academic press, with a trade press, and even with a hybrid publisher, you're not going to be making much money, if any at all. There is a possibility to make money if you self-publish, but even that, it can be tricky because of all the marketing labor involved and even spreading the awareness about the book, that it's hard to make money from books. Writing a book is not for folks trying to make money. So one of the things I also wanted to mention is that some people lose money making or writing and publishing a book. That's just the way it is. For me, as someone who doesn't have an academic job, writing a book published by an academic press, I find myself in a unique situation. Whereas most academics publish books for the sake of their career, meaning they have a salary, whether it's a good or bad salary, it's a salary, they have a stable income, and they can use publishing that book towards their opportunities for advancing, for going up a step in whatever role or title they have, and even for gaining tenure. This is why this kind of book is probably one of the reasons why this book hasn't been published, is because writing a book like this is not incentivized in higher education. What's incentivized? Doing research based on your subject area expertise. So unless there was someone who had this type of subject area expertise that wanted to write a book about it, even then it would be more of a research-based book rather than a hands-on how-to book the way that this was written. So academics, they write their books. They continue to have their salaries while they write their books. The book can be used to help them advance, and it goes in their tenure file or it goes in their records to help them move up from assistant to associate, from associate to full professor. In my case, I didn't get any of that. So the whole time I was dedicating dozens, if not hundreds of hours to writing this book, co-authoring it. I wasn't getting paid for it. I don't want to completely misrepresent the situation. We did get an advance. And what is an advance? An advance is a check that you get paid upfront before the book sells. That is supposed to be them paying you part of what they anticipate you're going to sell. So if they think that your book is going to be a hit, they might give you a bigger advance. And if they think that it might not be as sellable, you'll get a smaller advance. In terms of money and how much money is to be made, if at all, the smallest advances are usually coming from academic presses. Next, trade presses, next, hybrid presses, and then at the end of the day, it's self-published books. You get the most money. You don't get an advance because you're working for yourself, but you get you get all the profits. Once, other than paying for the cost of physically printing the book, you get all the profits when you self-publish. But it's a lot more work. It can be trickier. It can be harder to self-publish because you're dealing with every step of the process by yourself instead of having help and support from the folks at a press. So, or with any of the major publishers. All of this to say that you don't make money selling books, and you could potentially lose money. Another thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of people pay a lot of money to do their marketing. I know someone, I'm not going to say their name, who publicly shared on a public medium, a public platform, that they spent nearly $100,000 on their marketing costs alone. And this is not a person that comes from wealth. This is someone with shared identity markers as a lot of my audience members. And I'm like, dang, if that person spent $100K out of pocket, first of all, I don't even know where that person got that money from. I mean, I know part of it was potentially from having certain funding sources, but a good amount of that was coming from their pocket. So kudos to them for being able to afford that. That's definitely not something I could do. At least not right now, not where I'm at with my business and my finances. No way. So FYI, not only do you not make any money, if at all, sometimes you lose money when you write and sell a book. So next up, number 2 is that writing a book can involve, like I said, a financial sacrifice, and that I feel like there's a bigger hit for entrepreneurs, especially early entrepreneurs. It's not common to find folks early in their careers writing books. What I did I think it was a year into my business, I started writing this book because it takes 2 years for it to come out. So I started writing this book in 2022, and I had only been in business for 1 year. That's unheard of. Most people don't do that. Most people don't do that, again, because of the financial sacrifice, and also because some people need more time to develop their skill set and expertise. I already had that expertise. But for me, it was a big financial sacrifice. Like I said, I sacrificed hundreds of hours away from doing work that could have been work that brought in income for me to support my family. So that was fewer hours with clients, fewer hours speaking, fewer hours doing anything that would bring in any money. And you know what? I want to shout out my co-author, because I will say that she did her best within her capacity, within her access to resources, to make sure that things were more equitable. So one of the ways that she did this, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, is that she advocated for me to get a bigger percentage of the advance, because she knew I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't making money during the writing process, whereas she continued to have her salaried paycheck as a full professor. So I'm glad that she was willing to advocate on my behalf. And she knows I'm doing this, 1, because I believe in the book and I believe in the impact, and 2, because I'm hopeful that with the impact of the book will mean more eyes on my work and my business, and more ideal folks who will want to work with me, and eventually, hopefully, getting my business to a point where it's sustainable enough that I can keep doing it, that I can keep doing what I do in a way that feels good and in a way that still allows me to comfortably take care of my family. That's all I want. I love the work that I do, but I'm not a martyr. I can't do this work for free. I do this for a living. Like what I do with my speaking, with my coaching, with, all these things. I get so many requests of folks who's, what's the word in English? That sinvergüenzas. They just are like, can you do this for free? No, I don't do things for free. I used to, maybe in grad school. I used to when I had a salaried job and I had the time and I had the capacity for it. And I didn't, now, with my disability, I have higher support needs. So no, I can't do things for free. I just can't. And in this case, I made that intentional decision of, I'm going to write this book. It's not going to pay me much, if anything at all. If anything, it might put me in the negative because the amount of time and energy I'm dedicating to it, whereas I could have put that towards taking income generating actions. But again, it was all because I really believed in the book, and I still really believe in the book and the impact that it will have. I do. You can't change my mind about that. You read the book and tell me otherwise, because you can't prove me wrong. I'm biased. It's my book. I really believe in it. So for me, it was, okay, I believe in it, and this will hopefully be a long-term investment that pays off. I'm not going to see any initial kind of um, ROI, like I'm not going to see much money right away. But hopefully in the future, as more folks hear about the book and more folks hear about my work, it could potentially help me out in my business and in my life. I hope so. We'll see. And even if it doesn't, I still believe in the book. And I'm going to keep marketing it, because why write a book for it to sit in a dusty shelf? I don't understand. And that actually brings me to my next point, which is point number 3. You're responsible for marketing your book. Here's the thing. No matter if you publish with an academic press, trade press, hybrid press, or you self-publish, you are responsible for the majority of the marketing. If you are self-publishing, you're doing all of it. If you go with, a trade press, you might have support from a team. If you go with an academic press, there's also folks there that support you. So for instance, we have a marketing person and a publicity person who help out, but it's still up to us, 70 to 80%. And it's primarily been me. Well, no, let me say that differently. I've been doing a lot of the marketing when it comes to social media marketing and email marketing. And I hired help through a temporary intern who has helped with the bulk of the email marketing tasks. So yes, I do have help, and I didn't do it all on my own. And my co-author has done some of the marketing through her contacts. So through her network of the folks that she has mentored and femtored for many, many years, a lot more years than I have. So in that respect, there's been many of us doing this work. So from UC Press, they're doing their job of marketing to their listservs, on their website, and to some extent on their social media, although they don't have a big social media presence. On my end, it's been my email newsletter, my social media, my podcast, and basically every time I'm on any call, anytime you hear me, I feel like a broken record. I'm mentioning it over and over and over again. I want everybody and their mama to know about the book. So it feels like I've done a lot, but I know hasn't been all me, and I haven't done everything. No, so that would be giving myself too much credit. So combined, though, it's the responsibility of my co-author and I to do the bulk of the marketing. So I'll just say that 70 to 80% of the marketing is on us, on her and I. And I have taken on a few more tasks, and I also have had an intern helping me with some of the email related marketing stuff. So just to clarify, that's what happened for us. Now, for other folks, they hire teams. So there are people who hire entire teams who have, and with trade presses, they have an agent, they have a publicist, they have a marketing team. It's not just one person, but it's multiple people behind the scenes. And of course, that makes it so that a lot more people hear about the book. The more help you have, the more people are going to hear about the book. But you know what? I also believe in the power of word of mouth. And I was reminded of that at our book launch. So many people showed up for my co-author and I, folks that we have supported. It's so beautiful to have folks there who she and I met as undergrads, and now they have PhDs or they themselves are professors. How amazing is that? So I don't want to discount the power of word of mouth, but I also want to remind you that as an academic, no one teaches you about marketing. Nobody teaches you about publicity. Nobody teaches you about marketing, publicity, branding, thought leadership. Nobody teaches you anything related to promoting yourself and your work. So it can feel icky. It can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like, oh, how dare you? How dare you promote yourself and your work in this way? But you got to do it. You got to do it. Like I said earlier, why have your book that you spent so much time and energy and love on? Why have it sit on a dusty ass shelf? That makes no sense to me. So I'm going to keep talking about it. I mean, I don't know at what point I'll get fed up of talking about it, but for now I'm going to keep talking about it because, again, prove me wrong. I think it's a great book. I really believe in it. I have wanted this book for so long. I wish I could go back in time and could have had that book myself. It's the book that I needed, and it's the book that I know a lot of people need. And hearing folks tell me, oh my gosh, let me just share two examples. Actually 3 examples. One is someone told me they bought the book and that they're creating a library for their family, for their extended family, for their primas and primos and nieces and nephews so that they can have access to this library of resourceful books to help them get from one stage to the next in their life. How beautiful is that? The next is I heard about a friend of mine who recommended the book to a local bookstore in the San Fernando Valley. And not only did they say yes, they said, actually, we had already heard about the book and we already have copies. Like, what? And get this, she told me, and then I find out that's the local bookstore 5 minutes away from where my mom lives. I low-key want to do a book signing there, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to do a book signing there, but how amazing is that? 5 minutes away from where my mom lives, in my hometown. That's the power of marketing. You can call it something else. You can call it spreading the word. You can call it promoting the book. You can call it whatever. But it really is powerful to just keep telling people about it, and you never know who it might reach. The last one was actually my mom telling me that one of her colleagues who works in the same little shopping center as her, another elder Latina immigrant, asking about my book. Like, when is her book coming out? And my mom was like, I don't know. Let me ask her. And then she asked me, I'm like, Mom, you never asked me about my work. Why are you asking me when my book comes out? I didn't even know that you knew that I've had a book coming out. And then she's like, es que fulana de tal quiere saber y le quiere ordenar un libro a su, who was it? Was it her goddaughter or her niece? So in any case, she was saying, so-and-so wants to order a copy for, I think it was her niece, maybe her goddaughter. But how amazing is that? So if that doesn't push you and motivate you to want to learn more about book marketing, especially for academics who are not taught how to market books, and yet you're still expected to write a book and release it, I don't know what will motivate you more. It's important to get the word out. Especially if you believe in what you wrote about, especially if you think that it'll change lives. Go out and tell people about it. All right, I already feel like this is going to become a long episode. I'm 20 minutes in and I'm barely halfway through. Reason number 4 is, or the 4th thing that I wish someone would have told me about publishing a book is that pre-orders make a big difference in your ability to become a bestseller and or have your book picked up by an audiobook company. You know how people become bestsellers? Not by chance, but by intention and strategy. The folks who become bestsellers know that they want to be bestsellers and come up with an action plan to become a bestseller. And when you're a bestseller, now I'm already skipping ahead to another thing that I was going to say. When you're a bestseller, it doesn't mean you're the best writer. It just means you can sell books. So pre-orders make a big difference. Why? Because every single book you sell, and it's too late for me, the book's already out, but every single book you sell up to the day of the first week that the book comes out, that all counts towards your first week sales. So everything beforehand gets counted towards your week 1 sales. And that means that if you get a big push of big pre-orders, then all of a sudden you're going to go up in the rankings and folks are going to be like, oh, this book is a bestseller. That's how it works. So that's why there's always this push and incentivizing of, hey, pre-order the book. I did that too. It was like, pre-order the book, you get a workbook. Pre-order the book, pre-order the book. And maybe that's why we were the number one new release in the graduate school guides category on Amazon. It might be because of the push that we made to get people to pre-order the book. Who knows? So just know that about pre-orders. And also, I'm not just trying to be a bestseller just for like vanity metrics. Do I look like someone who cares about vanity? As I'm wearing red lipstick, if you're watching me. I might post a little reel clip about this episode, but if you can't see me, I'm wearing red lips right now, so it's kind of funny. I'm like, do I care about vanity? And yet my ass is wearing makeup. So the other thing is tied to the audiobook portion of it. Now, I'll say I'm not 100% sure how audiobooks function for trade presses, but when we approached our press about the possibility of having an audiobook, I expressed a strong interest in it. Of course, I'm an auditory learner, and I would be so down to recording it myself. I would love to. Oh my gosh, that's on my bucket list of things to do. In fact, at one point, I was considering a career in being an audiobook narrator. But in any case, we asked, and you know what they told us? They said that we'd have to pitch it to the major audiobook company, that it's not something that's just given, and that we need to show that there's a strong interest in the book to even pitch it. AKA, we need to wait until the book comes out, sell a lot of copies for them to even consider us. So this is just another little kind of reminder just to you all that if you want an audiobook version of this book, please tell everybody you know to order a copy, because that's the only way I'm going to be able, or my co-author and I are going to be able to justify going back to the press to then pitch it to the audiobook folks to be like, hey, you know what? This book is a bestseller with our press, and there's a strong interest in an audiobook. Can we make that happen? So the next point I wanted to make is that the publishing world, among other, just the publishing world in general is a very gatekeeping world. I said that earlier, but I'm going to say it again. And it's even more gatekeepy, or I don't even know if that's a word, but it's even more like that among trade presses. And it frustrates me. And to some extent, it angers me. And in fact, I attended a workshop recently by a best-selling author. The workshop was titled something along the lines of how to what was it? Write and publish a book with a trade press, something along those lines, where I just went there because I was thinking, okay, this person has published multiple books, has been a bestseller, has gone with the trade press. I want to learn about that side of publishing. And what happened is what happens a lot of times when you go to these free workshops, which is so frustrating. And I hope I never become this type of entrepreneur that does this particular gimmicky thing where they're like, come, I'll teach you how to do X, Y, and Z. You show up, they share 1 to 2 things, and they're like, if you want the rest, sign up for my blah, 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 and pay thousands of dollars for it. So that was just another reminder of, oh, this is so annoying how gatekeeping this industry is. So all of this to say that, let me tell you a little bit about the trade press publishing process. If you want to go with the trade press, typically, not necessarily in every case, but in a lot of cases, you're expected to find a literary agent. This can take upwards of a couple of months to maybe even a year. Why? Because you need connections and you need to go and pitch yourself. You need to, get on people's calendars. In some cases, you might even have to meet people in person for them to take you seriously. And then maybe if someone believes in you, they'll take you on and they serve as your agent. And then they're the ones who send inquiry letters to the big publishing houses. And that's kind of like them pitching your book to them. And, similarly for academic presses, whereas you don't have to have an agent with an academic press, you still have to pitch your book to editors. So you reach out contact different editors. It's even better if you have a connection, if you have someone who knows that editor who can put you in touch with them. And yeah, you pitch your idea. Hopefully it's a good enough idea. They express interest. In our case, they expressed interest. And from there, we were asked to write a book proposal. And there's no guarantee after that you're going to get the book. But after writing the book proposal, then they might give you feedback or not. In our case, we wrote a fabulous proposal and didn't get, many edits, or I don't think we got any edits actually, if I remember correctly. And then you get a contract. And after that, you hit the ground running with the writing process. And then after the writing process, we wrote the book in 6 months. After the writing process, it goes into the next stage. And that, after that, it's in some ways it's off your hands. Yes, you will be getting, because it's an academic press, there will be a peer review process and you will be getting feedback and you will be making revisions. And then you have access to an editor and they also provide you with feedback and with suggestions for changes. But really the bulk of the work is during that first 6 months or more after your book proposal has been approved and you've signed the contract. And yeah, after that, a lot of it is a waiting game. So just know that if you're curious, like how does it actually work? That's how it works for academic presses. And the timeline is very similar for trade presses. It usually takes about 2 years on the quick side to get a book out, from the moment you pitch it to the moment it comes out. Now for self-publishing, you can self-publish overnight. I mean, what did I say? For self-publishing, you can self-publish a book overnight. There are fewer hurdles, but you have to figure everything out on your own. You got to come up with your book cover. You got to hire your own illustrator or designer to work on the book cover. You got to do all the formatting. You do everything. You can hire people to help, but it's still primarily up to you to get it all done. Now, another thing I wanted to mention is related to how advances work. And I wish someone would have told me about how advances work earlier. I think, when I mention about advances is that you're getting money up front from what they think that you're going to sell. So you have to have enough books sell to pay back your advance before you start to get what is called a royalty or royalties. That's when you start to get paid. Each year you get, some sort of paycheck to indicate how much money you made based on the number of sales of your book selling every year. If your book hardly sells, or if you don't sell anything at all, then you're not going to get anything. And the percentage of what you make varies wildly. You make the most money if you're self-published because you get all that net profit. So aside from whatever costs you incur to actually physically print the book, everything else goes back to you. Now I'm trying to think about the order. The next one where you make the most, I would say, is with hybrid publishers, because hybrid is called hybrid. It's kind of in between a trade press and self-publishing. And so they'll give you a bigger percentage of what you get back. Let's say it's somewhere along the lines of 30 to 50% of the profits is what you take home. Again, and profits is taking out however much it costs to print the book, right? Then for trade presses, you might get anywhere from 10 to 25%. Depends on what you negotiate. And then the least is the academic presses. You are lucky if you get 10% back from the profits, not from what people pay for the book, but from the profit. So you don't make a lot. In fact, I am a co-editor of a best-selling anthology, and we might get a couple $100 a year that covers the costs of our memberships and hosting our website, and that's it. It's not much. So just a heads up about that so that you all know this, because again, this is information that nobody tells you. Now I'm down to the second to last point, number 6, and then my last one is number 7. So number 6 is that the bestseller game is not about being a good writer. It's about being a good seller. I think I already mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to say it again, that I've learned from listening to many podcasters, some of whom are best-selling authors who have openly talked about this process, that they were very strategic with how they planned out their book marketing process. They had a whole team. They had a plan of action. They had spreadsheets. They hired people. They even built community and had volunteers to help them. They reached out to folks and incentivized, hey, I give you a free book if you write a review, or I give you this for free if you do that for me. So it's very much not about, oh, let me just hope and pray that it becomes a bestseller. It's, no, I'm going to make it happen, even if it means having to pay people to help me with this process. And even if it means having to give a whole lot of free books. Guess what? The freebies that I were giving, like I gave away 2 books at my book launch party. I paid for that out of pocket. And I have a couple of folks who are going to do giveaways and they're sponsoring the book. So I've got 3 people who have agreed to at least give away 1 book, like pay for 1 book, which is pretty cool. So that's great. But all of this to say that folks are willing to pay money, hire a team. That's why that one person I mentioned earlier that spent $100K, this is why it can cost up to $100K for you to market your book alone. So some people, they have the money and they want to have that accolade. They're like, I want to be a best-selling author. And they write a book and then they hire, guess what? They hire a book coach. Book coaches cost at least $10K. Trust me, I know, because I've looked them up and I've looked up the numbers and I'm like, oh, dang, I cannot afford that, at least not now. So they've got their book coaches, they've got their editors, and guess what? There's all kinds of editors. There are developmental editors who provide you feedback on the substantial components of your writing, like they give you substantial feedback related to, I'm trying to think about, like, they're just giving you substantial feedback on the writing itself. Then there are sensitivity readers who you might hire to review the book and make sure you're not offending anyone, make sure you're not misrepresenting anyone or any community or any culture that you write about. Then there are copy editors and line editors. So those folks might be looking more at your language or at your formatting. Then there are indexers. And that was something we couldn't get away without doing. We actually had to incur that cost on our own. And hiring an indexer is also not cheap. And what they do is they're the ones that are responsible for coming up with an index. If you ever look at the back of a book, there's an index that helps readers find key information in the text. Another thing we did, so we hired an indexer because we had no other option. We weren't allowed to index our own book. Hired an indexer, and then also we ourselves as co-authors came up with a glossary, because we wanted to make sure that there was a glossary of terms so that if any student felt like, I don't know what this means, you could go to the end and find that term again. And no worries, you don't have to know everything. That's why there's a glossary. But long story short, folks who are bestsellers, they are very strategic and intentional about it. And sometimes they will pay a lot of money or they will sacrifice a lot of time and energy towards becoming a bestseller. This is why in many ways there was a part of me that wanted to give up, where I thought, how am I going to do this? Like, I can't compete with that. Like, I know someone, now I'm going to get pissed off. One of the world's leading podcasters hires a team. Oh my gosh, how many people did she say she had on her team? I think it was at least 20 people who do full-time marketing work for her. So marketing her podcast to people all over social media, direct messaging them, just doing a bunch of marketing work for her. And she pays them $500 a month for full-time work, full-time hours. Can you believe that? I'm not even going to say who that is. But when I found that out, I was like, oh my goodness, this is why some people become big. because they're willing to compromise on their ethics to do it. And I'm not. So that's why there was a part of me that was like, oh, should I even give up at the hope of this becoming an impactful book when I don't have the budget and I also don't have the time and energy as a disabled, chronically ill person. But you know what I do have? I have you all. I have community. And you all really, really showed me that at the book launch. And you all have especially shown me that this week on social media. So thank you for that, because y'all give me hope. And I hope that this also gives you hope so that in me doing this, you all can write your books. And I'm going to get to the last point and then I'll wrap up. The last point was actually about the whole hiring help. The whole point about hiring help. A lot of people hire help. A lot of people can afford to hire help. And that's just something for you to keep in mind, that if you feel like, oh, well, I'm not a good writer, I could never write a book, I could never do it. Have you ever done something with the support of others that you didn't think you could do? Okay, then that means that if you get the support of others, there's a good chance that you can do it. And I didn't say all this. I know I really did go in the weeds about the good and the bad and the ugly. I didn't say all this to scare you away from not writing your book. I say this so that you can be informed, so that you can be prepared, so that you can be aware, and so that, you got to know the rules in order to know which ones to keep and which ones to break, and so that you can be more intentional about, you know what, these are the things I'm definitely going to do because I know I want to do them to help me in this way. These are the things that I'm not going to do because I refuse to do it that way and I'm going to do it my way. And that's kind of how I feel about this whole book launch process. It really has felt like a mix of both. Like, I'm going to do some of the traditional marketing and I'm also going to rely on community and I'm also going to do things my way. And, I love my podcast. So of course I'm going to keep doing the promoting on my podcast because y'all are my real MVPs. You really are. I love hearing from my podcast listeners. It brings me so much joy when y'all hit me up in the DMs. I don't know why you all don't leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. Maybe a lot of you just don't have that app or don't listen on Apple Podcasts. From my numbers, it looks like most people are listening on Spotify. But dang, if you can leave a review, that would be great. It would make my day. Subscribe and review. And other than that, keep DMing me. Keep, letting me know what resonates. I'm pretty sure this episode is going to resonate and be popular. I just have a feeling. So let me know if you gain something from this. Please, please don't keep it to yourself. So, someone was telling me, actually, one of my friends, that she was telling me that her therapist was reminding her that every time someone reaches out to you and tells you like how impactful you were to them, that there are countless more people thinking that but not telling you. And so each time someone reaches out to me to say, hey, your podcast was really helpful for me. Your podcast helped me get into grad school. Your podcast helped me to land my first job. Your podcast helped me get out of a really dark, scary place. I'm reminded, you know what? That's probably not the only person. And even though I don't get paid for this, y'all compensate me in so many other ways that I can't even begin to describe. So thank you for listening. That's it for today's show. I didn't expect to get so emotional, but just know I appreciate you and I feel the love. So muchas gracias. Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. If you like what you heard, here are 4 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The second way is to get your copy of my free Grad School Femtoring Resource Kit, which includes essential information to prepare for and navigate grad school. You can access it at the link in today's show notes. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @GradSchoolFemtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. The last way to show your love is to sign up to work with me via my Grad School Femtoring Academy, my group coaching program for first-gen BIPOCs seeking to work on their personal growth and gain sustainable productivity skills. You can learn more at gradschoolfemtoring.com/academy. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.